What's going on, vinyl community and Kiss Army? Welcome to the third episode of Council of the Elder, a series discussing the hottest band in the world with Kiss fans and people in the Kiss sphere, hosted by yours truly, the Record Spinner. This third episode consists of my interview / discussion with Xander of the Kiss Army Things podcast. Xander is an absolutely enthusiastic Kiss Army soldier who hosts a fantastic podcast delivering all of the latest Kiss news, provides some fun discussions, showcases his collection. His wife and brother join in on some episodes. All kinds of great content, and what Xander provides within the Kiss community, yes, spelled with a K, is very much a ray of positivity amidst the flurry of other Kiss-centered podcasts. Now, what Xander and I share in common is the fact that since we are both close in age, between late 20s, early 30s, we are a part of the sort of third generation of Kiss fans who didn't quite experience Kiss during the glory years of the 70s and all of the changes and evolution that went on in the 80s and 90s. We came on board when Kiss established themselves as a sort of legacy act, but that still enabled us to relish in our Kiss fandom in ways similar to those that experienced it during the heyday of the 70s. Now, whether this boils down to having the same love and admiration for Kiss or being close in age, this discussion was like talking to a long-lost friend because we got to share what our experiences being a Kiss fan as kids in the 2000s was like, living to see albums like Sonic Boom and Monster come out, and we talked about the shows that we saw. Plus, Xander talks about the origins of launching the Kiss Army Things podcasts and also taking over KissMuseum.com, which is going to be very exciting, and I can't think of a better person to take the charge in that respect. As you can tell by the length of this video, we got totally lost in conversation in the greatest possible way, but hey, that is what happens when you put two Kiss fans together in the same vicinity, and I hope that the enthusiasm that we share for Kiss comes across prominently to all you viewers out there. I've done enough babbling, so without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, Xander, take us back to the beginning. Where did your Kiss Army membership start?
Yeah, so for me, being born in 95, I remember my parents going to the Kiss convention and then going to see Kiss on the reunion tour. I didn't quite know what they were doing, though, because they were just getting a babysitter, and then I would just be stuck with a babysitter all night. But on the Psycho Circus tour, they were going to see Kiss in Indianapolis, and I remember freaking out because they weren't taking me. And so it was that 98, summer of 98 is when I would place mine and my brother. I have to include Jeb in this. Our Kiss origin was the summer of 98. It started with just watching Kiss Extreme close up at home again and again and again. Our parents had those figures right there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Out of the box on display. And we actually convinced Dad to let us play with them because he was explaining to us like, no, you have your toys. These are mine, like and so we just kept asking and begging, and finally he let us, basically have Extreme close up, let us have those figures. Psycho Circus came out later that year, and that's how we knew that the reunion had happened. So that for us was like the big news, because even though, like I said, my parents had gone to the reunion show and all that,
sure,
I didn't know what was going on. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at the new Kiss album. They're back in makeup. It's a 3D cover. You can move it, and it moves with you. And it's like opening of the curtain. And it was like, oh, wow, this is like the new old Kiss. It's the new Kiss, but it's the old Kiss.
Sure.
And so obviously, we're in our late 20s, early 30s now. So we can look back at it and think, wow, what a special time. But back then, you're just experiencing it as it is. And when you hear Kiss fans talk about, sorry, go ahead. I'm blabbing already.
No. You're totally fine. So basically, so you kind of remember when Psycho Circus came out.
I don't remember the rollout, but okay. I remember Dad saying, "Hey, this is the new Kiss album," and I'm like, well, they're in makeup," and he's like, "Yeah," because all we had Revenge, and we had a couple 70s stuff. So we're kind of like totally piecing different. All this together. Yeah,
sure.
So, Kiss Extreme Close Up ended with I Just Wanna, and it began with Unholy. So we're still in that revenge mode.
Yeah.
They told us about the convention tour, getting to actually meet Gene, meet
Oh,
Eric.
jeez.
I have their passes from that event now, and some
That's awesome.
photos, which I just unearthed some photos from theirs that they had taken that I haven't seen in over 20 years. I thought they were gone forever. I just found them, and I'm going to be sharing them on the channel next month for the 30th anniversary. But yeah, we're still thinking it's, which is fine because that era is amazing, the Revenge era. But learning that Kiss was back together, all four in makeup, new Kiss album. Yeah, I mean, what a fantastic, spectacular time. And of course, that song, Psycho Circus, I think has become, one of the defining songs of our era. Welcome to the show.
1,000%.
The amplifiers start to hum, the makeup running down my face. It's like
Carnival's
a Kiss.
just begun.
It's like a Kiss theme song. It's a rallying, it's a reaffirmation of who they are. And so that song is definitely one of my favorites. But yeah, so I'm a late 90s Kiss fan. The Second Coming is where I came in the picture.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned that Indianapolis show, because correct me if I'm wrong, and this is the real test to see if you know this. Are you aware of the bonus live EP that came with some of the deluxe versions? Are you kicking yourself because of that?
Yes. So I didn't know that for the longest time. And
really?
So unfortunately, our father has passed away now. And so when I heard about that there was a bonus disc that came with it, that, there was a special edition release that came with a bonus disc that had some songs from Indianapolis, some songs from Terre Haute. But that version of Psycho Circus, you hear Kiss, all right, Indianapolis, and the crowd's going nuts. And it's like, yeah, my parents are there. They're the ones. Now, of course, I'm at home screaming because I'm at home with a babysitter, but they are there at Market Square Arena. So I can always at least go back and listen to that and have, that sort of connection there. So, but yes, that is really cool.
That you can say that your folks were there. So it sounds like your parents were just uber. I mean, to go as far as to go to the conventions and meet Gene and Eric, like that's your foundation right there. So it wasn't a case where you stumbled upon it on your own. Your parents kind of raised you into that fandom at a very early age.
A little bit, yeah. They were obviously, they grew up in the Midwest, so rock and roll was their thing. They grew up listening to AC/DC, of course, like Kiss and then Metallica and, all that stuff. And they kept up with some of the new stuff too. I mean, they were going to see bands like Jackal and, Godsmack and some of those newer bands that were coming out at the time. So they were all about it. They were probably around a little bit younger, but the same age we are right now. Where you're an adult, you're a young adult, but you still are just now, you're making your own money and you're spending it your way. You're going to see the shows that you want to see. You don't rely on mom and dad to tell you what you can do and where to go. So them together, man, they were, they were always going to shows, always going to concerts. And I don't think for them, they felt the need to hide rock and roll from their kids. Some parents, which is fine. It's, you raise your kids how you want to. They change. They put the metal days behind them, the rock and roll days behind them. They just, kind of, if you like it, you like it. And so they didn't force anything on us. They didn't really, school us like, this is what you listen to. This is good music. We don't listen to that, this crap and that crap. It was like, you just like what you like. And so we naturally fell in love with it. I mean, it's hard to, as soon as you listen to Kiss, you look at Kiss, you watch Kiss. I mean, it's really hard to not just fall in love with that, especially at that young, impressionable age. Again, I was 3, Jeb was 1. Those are our earliest memories, is awesome. Discovering
lifelong. That's wonderful. The way that you described like how your parents were and everything at essentially our age, like my folks are the same way. I make the joke that, when they got married and such, they did everything that they wanted to do for 10 years, did road trips to shows. They stayed in a hotel room across from Phil Collins. They had front row seats for Rush. And then 1997 rolls around. I'm born. I ruined the party. But then as I got older, I kind of started to have them pick up the pace. But you know what? It's funny. Like, my parents never hid rock and roll for me because, I mean, essentially my foundation is what they grew up with. I mean, my dad was really into like the 70s hard rock and metal stuff, like, Black Sabbath. He also was into some Jethro Tull and this and that. My mom, I always make the joke, even though Rush is a guy's band, she's one of the biggest female fans. So
there you go.
That was my foundation. But now thinking back, the only, I say it with all due respect, my father never hit anything from me. Like, he would show me Beavis and Butthead episodes, and I would laugh
Yeah.
hysterically. And then when my mom found out that the Ramones had songs about sniffing glue and lobotomies, that was kind of like that was my stash of CDs that I hid under my bed because they would be confiscated.
Gotcha. So there came a time where you had to like, all right, I got to be selective in how I do
Sure.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
That's
colorful
funny,
ways that we had to go about it. But so since you kind of were starting to piece the puzzle together around the time of Psycho Circus, obviously that was the reunion, the original lineup. Now, obviously, our Kiss is Gene, Paul, Eric, and Tommy. Do you think that for us being, I guess, because we were talking about it before we went live, third generational fans, because obviously at the 70s, 80s, and here we were born in the 90s, do you think that aspect has enabled you to accept Eric and Tommy as the Catman, Spaceman? Like, where do you stand on that personally?
Yeah, that it's tough because everybody's different. So for me, honestly, I mean, part of the magic of being a younger fan was discovering the magic of Kiss, because obviously we were born with all this rich history behind us. The band had already formed, they'd already reached that peak, fallen off that peak, unmasked, went through lineup changes. And so I think having watched Extreme close up, having been introduced to literally everything that was Kiss on day one, it was like Kiss started in 73, here it is in, I guess at that point, 92. And you're seeing all of it. Eric Carr, Vinnie Vincent, they talk about Mark St. John. You got Bruce Kulick and Eric on screen talking as well. So I already knew that Kiss was more than just the original four, even though the original four is obviously the catalyst. It's the most important. It's the foundation. It's everything that is Kiss. It never ended there. And so obviously watching Extreme close up at a young age, you kind of become more aware of the business aspect. And how your attitude will play a role. So they talked about how Vinny, personality-wise, didn't fit in the band. Mark St. John wasn't there. I mean, Extreme Close Up, honestly, was crazy because I was learning even about death. Eric Carr, I never knew that a person could die, and here they are, Gene and Paul, talking about death. So it was like, whoa, there's a member of Kiss that isn't here anymore. And so, I mean, you learn a lot about Kiss and the members and how they're all important. So let's just fast forward to 03 when I'm watching Alive 4 and it says Tommy Thayer on screen, and it's like, well, who's Tommy?
Yeah.
I asked Dad. Dad, I think, was like just as confused, but he's Dad, so he's got to give an answer. He's like, well, Ace, he's sick. Either he's sick, he can't be there, he's not going to be there. This guy's going to take over. Could be for one show, could be forever. He doesn't know, so he's like, who knows? Enjoy it. So we had to look at it and say, well, does it look like Kiss? Does it sound like Kiss? Does it feel like Kiss? And it was a resounding yes. I mean, it was fantastic. And Tommy, knowing that the farewell tour had already been initiated and pretty much finished, this was like light at the end of the tunnel, because you're like, well, maybe there's something to this. And I didn't even know that Eric Singer had taken over to the Catman until 06. So 06 was when I saw and knew that I was seeing the current lineup, the final four.
Was that your first show?
No, that was we were watching VH1 Rock Honors, actually.
I remember
my
that.
first my first show was on the Kiss Aerosmith tour with Tommy and Peter. It was Tommy's first tour and Peter's last tour. It was right after Kiss Alive 4. So that Alive 4
same year.
That season was like reinvigorating, because you were thinking like, oh, Kiss is over. I'm going to spend my whole life, rediscovering, as opposed to getting to live. And so here I am at a Kiss show living it. Now, we missed Rock the Nation, so that's why I didn't know about Eric and Tommy being full-time. Yeah, no internet, no cell phones, no nothing.
That was
your first show?
My first tour.
Okay.
July 13th in Camden, New Jersey. That was my first ever show in general.
Yes. Okay, for sure.
Yeah,
man,
so
that's special. That's special.
I mean,
I wish I could have seen that tour.
Though. That tour was awesome. Between the set list, they were, throwing in like "Lover All I Can" and like some of the, oddities and shit. I'm just like, what?
Only show in Indiana I missed in 20 years was that show, that tour. And it was just because, we had seen them the year prior, and we didn't we weren't keeping up on social media, so we just we just didn't know. And they didn't come back to Indiana either until 2010 on the Hottest Show on Earth tour.
Really?
They didn't play the Live 35. They didn't play on the original Sonic Boom tour. It wasn't until the second coming of the Sonic Boom tour, 2010, when they played the Indiana State Fair, which was the first time since that Rock the Nation show.
Oh, geez. So they did not come during 2009 at all?
No, they didn't. It wasn't until 2010. It was, I don't know why. They played a lot of places on the Alive 35 and that original Sonic Boom leg, but
Yeah.
nowhere. They didn't touch Indiana. Not the big market, not the small market, the medium market, nothing. Which is wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then they only did like those spotty shows like from 2000 like 4, not 2004, like 2005 to like 2007. Like that was just like
It was a
sporadic
weird period.
appearances. Yeah. You know what?
That
You
was
were
the only period that I fell off of Kiss. It wasn't that I fell off of Kiss. It's that because they weren't doing anything, I was actually listening to like the pop stations and the hip hop stations and all
really?
that. It wasn't until Alive 35 and Sonic Boom when, you know, everything started to feel new again and fresh again, because it was like the only way you could watch or get your Kiss dose was Family Jewels.
That's a fair argument. I was going to say I kind of have a similar experience with Kiss Alive 4 because I had the CD, I had the DVD, and I remember I opened up the CD and I see the band photo. It's them in the white background. Tommy's sitting on a road case. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wait a second. Because I had known the history at that point. Like, literally, dude, when I was 4 years old, I got the box set for Christmas.
Okay.
So I knew the history, and I'm seeing Tommy and Ace's makeup, and I'm like, that's interesting. I don't know what's up with that. I wasn't pissed off like some other fans are, you know, when it comes to that kind of thing. I'll just put it out there in general, and this goes for all aspects of Kiss fandom to some extent. I am an optimistic Kiss fan.
Yeah.
I don't like to shit talk my boys often. Do I have my criticism? Sure, but at the end of the day, it's Kiss. You know?
Yes.
At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
and that's why, personally, for me, I can dig on Tommy and Eric wearing the makeup because the way that I see it, that is what people remember the band as. Yes, I love Eric Carr. Yes, I love Vinnie Vincent. Now, I don't know if it's over time the band has sort of, I don't want to say rewrote history, but it was kind of like those personas didn't work. I mean, that was the band just trying to purge on. So they were trying to keep it evolving. Could it have evolved further if it kind of worked better? Who knows? Who really knows? But it's funny that you mentioned the mid 2000s was the sort of drop off point, because do you know what kept me so locked in as a fan during those sort of middle years?
Huh. Oh yeah. Kissology. Yeah.
Listen, before I became well versed in the realm of, like, you know, Kiss videos and bootlegs and things, this was the equivalent of the Torah, basically.
Oh, absolutely. I can tell yours has been used too. Yours looks like mine.
Well, loved to death. Hell, I remember going to Best Buy on the day that Volume 2 came out, and it has seen some love. And then Volume 3, I remember Christmas 2007. I was watching Coventry 73 after I just played Guitar Hero 3 on my PS4.
Yes.
Let's
go.
Eating Reese cups out of a Kiss mug I got on Christmas morning. It was the purest time of my life.
Man, that takes me back to, I feel that, man. I feel that. Kissology was incredible. And I was late to that party because I think it came out in the first one was 06, I think.
Halloween 2006, and then
Yes.
Volume 2 was August of 2007, and then they did Volume 3 in December of 07.
Okay, for sure. So I actually might have caught number 2 right when it came out, because I can think back to right when school started, around August of 07, being at Walmart and all of a sudden looking and seeing Eric. That's what got me. It was Eric Carr. I was seeing Eric Carr's makeup in Walmart, and it was Kissology Volume 2, which means there's a Volume 1, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And so I had to get Volume 2. And then I think I got Volume 3, like you said, in December, and ordered the Kissology Volume 1 out of the Kiss catalog, the Kiss Museum catalog that year, and got it. And that was how I completed my set. So I didn't even know it was out until it had, already been in full swing.
You know what's funny? I found out about this through a Best Buy ad that you got in like the newspaper. Like every Sunday you got all the circulars, and I saw this and I'm like, what the hell is that? And then all of a sudden I'm like, I have $30 spare on hand. Off to Best Buy we go.
Do you still have that ad?
You know what? I don't, but I think somewhere I have the ad for Volume 2.
That's cool.
Just
That's awesome.
little shit like that to say that, you know, you were there at a time. Because, and this will kind of transition into our next topic of discussion. Anything that bore a Kiss logo, even to this day, I still light up. I
Yeah. Oh,
still
I
light
can't help
up.
it.
The
Yeah.
most simplest things, whether it's an ad in a newspaper or just something that you see like out, like we were talking about earlier. If I go to Walmart or Target and there's a new Kiss shirt, I'm fucking buying it. Plain
Oh
and
yeah.
simple. Like, I remember going to Target in like 2009, 2010. Do you remember the Kiss 360 trading cards?
Dude, yes. Yes.
I,
Absolutely.
dude, I could go there and get 2 packs, and I'm like, what a great time to live in. You know what I'm saying?
I have the entire like the case that you would buy them in. I actually bought
Yeah.
the store display and it's full. It even has the sample on the side. Um, yeah, and the dog tags
Oh,
too.
that's awesome.
But yeah, my favorite was
Yeah,
when
I
Sonic Boom
remember those
came out.
dog tags. Yes.
Yeah, the rock tags as they were called. But yeah, those were great. And then when Sonic Boom came out, they had
Yes.
the Kiss Corner. There was the Kiss on Tour trading card, I think is what they were called. And each one had like stats about the tours, each individual tour. Those were my favorite and still are my favorite.
You know what? I say this because I have it right here. I also, this is the 360 set. This is the complete version.
Yes.
And what they did was they did them all in like black and white print, and there's like exclusive blue logos on them and too. I think I got this out of Walmart probably years back. This was literally on my shelf. I just looked and I'm like, oh, wait a second.
That's awesome. That's
Oh,
awesome.
it's
Yeah,
so
that was
great.
a special time because it was like, again, you know, when Sonic Boom was coming out, it was like everything was feeling new. We were coming out of that. We were coming out of that downward, you know, era where it was like there was a couple. I think Kiss greatest hits were coming out and CDs, and then you had Family Jewels and things, but they weren't doing these big tours. They had already
Yeah.
said publicly that they weren't going to do any more new studio albums. So it just felt like, is there a Kiss? Is there not a Kiss? What are they doing? What are they going to do? And finally, they came back bigger than ever.
You know, honestly, I was one of those kind of fans that, because I learned the ins and outs of how Universal operated with all of those compilations and greatest hits packages. I bought every fucking one of them.
I believe it.
Dude, it's ridiculous. All the Millennium collections, playlist your way, because it has the little card in the middle. Like, I was
Oh,
ridiculous for rebuy. Like, literally, like, and my parents would be like, "You're rebuying the same stuff." I'm like, "But it's Kiss," you know.
it's packaged. It's new because it's different.
Hell,
Yes.
even the that just triggered me. The freaking Icon compilation, because it's the
Mm-hmm.
same as the first 20th Century Masters. Yeah, it's the same shit, but you have to get it. You know, it's
You get all
obligation.
four.
Yeah.
Yep, you got to get all four of them. Exactly. That's how they do it. There's always four. One of the first things I can think of getting myself was the Kiss Alive box set, which
Oh
came with Alive 1,
yeah.
Alive 2, Alive 3,
Yeah,
and the
and Alive.
Millennium concert for the first
Yes.
time.
For
That was super special.
you know what? It's so funny because I remember because in the back of the Kiss box set book, there you can see the cover for Alive 4, and it just never came out. And I remember every Christmas, I'm like, Kiss Alive 4, Kiss Alive 4. And it's like, I don't know what's up with it. It's not out. And then when that box came out, the little fold out road case thing, yeah,
Oh yeah.
that was special. That was the big deal because I'm like, this is an unreleased live album. What? And then you hear it and it doesn't sound live. But anyways, that's a whole other story.
Right. Yeah.
But you had kind of briefly mentioned you were talking about Kiss corners and such and Sonic Boom.
Mm.
Um, Obviously because we are younger Kiss fans who grew up when these fantastic albums had come out. What can you wait now? Is that an original one?
Oh yeah. Yeah. This one's real.
Oh, dude!
Shout
All
out
right.
to Glenn from Tales of a Kiss Geek because he's the one who sold this to me. So this came from Ireland.
Oh my God! See now, look, I am one of those lowlifes that did buy an unofficial version just for the sake of having it until
Yeah.
they reissue it. But that would probably be a grail for me when it comes to Kiss vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so freaking good.
It was for me too, and the copy that I had first was just the record and the slipcover. I found on Kiss Army Warehouse they were selling it was original black standard black vinyl with the slipcover only, no jacket, no poster, nothing. And I was like, I want that. So I went ahead and bought it. I had it framed every year, October 6th. I would bring it out once a day, spin it, put it back on the wall. And whenever Glenn from Tales of a Kiss Geek sold me this one, I went ahead and gave that one to Jeb so that he can have an official one, because he was the same way. He went and bought one of the unofficial ones, and then now just sticks the now that he has the original one, he just sticks the standard vinyl in the bootleg sleeve or jacket. But at least he has one. So but yeah, so I gotta and I'll go ahead and pull this one out, because this one is not standard black. This one's actually one of the colored ones. Of course, you could get it in different colors, and this one happens to be a sexy spaceman blue.
That looks wonderful.
So
you're killing me, dude. That is right there. That is a grail. You know what? It's funny. I have two unofficials. This one is just a single pocket jacket, and then the other one's a gatefold. Do I need both? Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Until you get the original or the full one, absolutely.
Yeah, that's tremendous. But when that first had come out, like, what were your like recollections to when the news was out that there was a new Kiss album? Do you remember picking it up the day it came out? Like, what are your thoughts on Sonic Boom?
So I wish I could remember the moment that I found out that there was going to be a new Kiss album, because that's the one thing. I guess I could just lie and make it up, but I honestly do not remember the moment that I found out, hey, there's going to be a new Kiss album. What I remember was the rollout and the lead up. I can think back to my dad at work must have had somebody who was online or in the know, if you will, because he's the one who came home. Dad said, hey, the guy at work told me the name of the new Kiss album. It's called Sonic Boom. And we were like, oh, that hit so hard. I cannot wait to hear this record. You know what I mean? It was exciting. And then you see the album cover, you see the commercial, then they release Modern Day Delilah. Now that I can think back to for the first time hearing that song. I was sitting on the bus freshman year, and my buddy texted me, who had just gotten off the bus, hey, new Kiss song, Y106, which was the local rock station at the time. And so I'm on my MP3 player. I stopped listening to whatever Kiss song I was listening to, go to my FM radio on my MP3 player, and I catch Modern Day Delilah coming out of the first chorus into the second verse. And when I heard Paul's vocals and Eric on that beat and just that riff, I was like, we're so back. This is it. And that song is still, I hear it, and every time it just gives me goosebumps. It's just electrifying. I love that song so much.
Yeah.
And then of course, when the album comes out, I'll admit this, I was able to get the leaked version a few days early. So I got a leaked version too. The files had somehow leaked, and so I mean, I couldn't help myself, listening to the new Kiss songs. But when it came out, again, Dad brought it home. So he picks us up after school. He says, "Look what I've got," and pops that in, and we go driving around, cruising in his little small box truck, listening to the new Kiss album, Sonic Boom, and with the biggest smile on our faces. And we didn't realize at the time that it was going to come with so much. So we're in the car opening it up. It's like, here, hold this side. You hold this side. I'll hold this side. It's got, it's got like a DVD, a CD, another CD. It's like, wait, we have re-recorded Kiss class. There's a DVD with it. It was like, oh, this. We're so back. Again,
and
it was
at
like,
the time, too, that was what? This is it. That was like $12 brand new, sealed from Walmart. Like, tremendous bang for the buck. Like, come on.
For real, absolutely. I mean, it was the best time.
Yeah, I remember the lead up. So, fun fact: in my house, when I was we're going back 2009. How old was I? I was 12 years old. We didn't have internet at our house, so for me, getting my Kiss scoop, I would go to Best Buy, go on the little like model laptops that had internet access. I would go on Kiss Online.
That is premium right there. That is so good. That is hardcore.
Of keeping in touch with what was going on in the Kiss world. And it was always like, Gene would name drop, like, we have a track called Rotten to the Core that we just tracked, and which became Hot and Cold. And I'm like, and I was like, oh shit, like this is hype. So then Modern Day Delilah comes out, and I was totally obsessed with it. I downloaded the leaked version, but I couldn't bring myself to listen to it until October 6th.
Okay, good for you. Way to show some strength.
It was like, I have it, but I can't do it yet. And sure enough, I remember, because weren't new releases done on Tuesdays instead of Fridays?
I don't remember, honestly. At this
I'm
point, I
trying
don't remember.
because I remember because it was a Walmart exclusive. So my dad took me to like the super mega Walmart in my hometown. Picked up, I had my Destroyer t-shirt on, picked the CD up, listened to like maybe the first 2 or 3 songs until I got to school, held the CD with me, got home, resumed from track 3 or 4, and just went to town.
Oh man,
It was
that's
wonderful. And then that was just about a week away from when they came around to Philly, because that's like the big metro city closest to me, on the Alive 35 tour.
oh yeah, that show. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I had the flu and I still went to the show.
No, is that the one that was pro shot on YouTube? The Philly show from '09,
It's
October.
so literally that someone took a camera and just set it up to where it got the screens on the side.
Mm.
It's the live feed cameras. And so that's the pro shot. Yeah. But
Wow.
literally I was so sick the day before and I woke up, and at the time too. See, this is the fun thing. Um Kiss did a lot of press between like Good Morning America, local news, and this and that. They played on, what was it, Letterman?
Yeah.
I So we had a DVD player slash recorder, and it was mainly just for transferring VHSs to DVD, taping stuff off TV. I had a little DVD of all like the local promotional appearances Kiss made,
Whoa.
and I was watching it, and I like that morning, and I'm like, I don't know how I am going to make it to the show. Like, I was so ill. And I remember my parents were like skeptical. They're like, what do we do? So I don't know who it was. They said, just take him. He'll be fine. So I remember I had a cheesesteak for dinner, got in the car, listened to Sonic Boom. And then just as we're crossing Walt Whitman Bridge, we're listening to Alive 2 and King of the Nighttime World starts. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden, the illness gods just went, and I was like, all right, I'm alive. Let's go.
Oh, let's do this. Man, that's
Literally,
really
that was
cool.
it. Like, it was,
Dr. Love was called.
yeah, literally. But yeah, and I survived the show, and then I went to school the next day. It was Columbus Day. That show, it was a Monday, and then I went back to school, was sick again, but that's a whole other story. But that, needless to say, I made it to the show.
That is what a great story. And I can think back to when also the music video came out for Modern Day Delilah.
Yes,
Yes, like larger than life, stomping
Giants
through.
through
I was like,
Detroit. Yep.
I don't know, that was pretty cool. I like that, and of course,
Yeah.
it has like the most ultimate performance video where it's like a whole Kiss concert in 3 minutes.
Pretty
I
much.
was like,
Yeah. In 3 minutes.
everything that Kiss is. It was a very special time. I was so happy again after 11 years of them saying, we're not going to do any more music, to get a fresh batch of Kiss tunes. I've become a little bit more critical over it as
Really?
time goes on. Yeah, well, and it's only because Monster to me was a little bit faster, a little bit grittier, a little heavier.
Totally.
So Sonic Boom feels like it was played a little bit safe, which it kind of had to be because it's the first
1000%.
album. So I mean, I can be honest about the record, but I can also be honest and say that that was like one of the best times of being a Kiss fan in my life personally, because it was that sense of newness, that sense of fresh Kiss. They were doing a live 35, but it really felt like Kiss was alive again, and you couldn't turn on.
1000%. Yeah.
They were doing, like you said, Kimmel, or they did. Well, I think it was Letterman, Kimmel, and Leno. All those late night shows, they did
Yeah.
everything, and they were everywhere again. It was like, yeah. So I was just happy to hear them, putting out new music, but also being on tour again and being active, because that 05, 06 era was just like so
It was
weird. Because you're
weird.
thinking, come on, Kiss.
See, and it's funny too, because for as much as some of the staunch hardcores that are like loyalists to the original lineup, whatever, what we got to experience in 2009 was what they got to experience in what, 76, 77. This was
Yes.
our moment. And for me, like, I had accepted that Psycho Circus was it, because you think about it, it was 11 years. I was like, okay, maybe that's it, and that's whatever. But then they dropped the ball with this, and honestly, look, for as adventurous as Kiss was throughout the years, they know their aesthetic well, to where they could reside amongst bands like AC/DC, Iron Maiden, who have that sound, know how to carry it out 40 plus years. Like, they don't need to break any more ground. So when I listen to it, like, yeah, does it sound like, rock and roll overish in places? Yeah, but I'm not pissed off about it. But you're right. They definitely did play it safe for the most part.
Yeah.
Until
Monster.
Monster
Yes.
came in 2012. Now, before we go into Monster, real quick, because we were talking about
Yes.
tours.
Okay.
You saw them in 2010.
I saw them in 2010 on the Hottest Show on Earth tour. Yes.
So
and then I
did
saw
I.
them again in 2012 when they were with Motley Crue.
Yep. See, that was my progression too for 2010. Now, that show was for me probably one of the best Kiss shows I ever saw for two reasons. Setlist covered, I think, as much ground as I had ever experienced them doing in concert, because for a while, and maybe this is because I saw the End of the Road tour so many times that I just got tired of it. But like, I'm looking at the set list and they did Crazy Crazy Nights. They did Say Yeah and I'm an Animal from Sonic Boom. God Gave Rock and Roll to You. And I'm just like, this set is actually fun. And it fucking opens the way it opens with Modern Day Delilah, and they come on that little platform over the drum. Yes,
that was everything. Good. That was I was like, my mouth was on the floor because I had seen that Rock Am Ring show, and I was just praying and hoping they were going to bring that level of the show to, the Indiana State Fair. I get it.
Sure.
Come on, no, they brought the full show, man. And I'm just they came over top. They get up the logo. It was like one of the last tours with a real logo that has the the light up logo. Because it was always a screen and they had the screen and the Kiss logo on that tour. So yeah, you mentioned that set list when they played Crazy Crazy Nights. I just was like, because I was like, I know everything they're going to play. I know every Kiss song they're going to play. And they brought out I'm an Animal, 3 songs from the new Kiss album. And like you said, all that other stuff was just
it was
amazing.
It really hit hard. Now, what I remember the most about this, and I'm going to do a whole video talking about the show coming up because the 15th anniversary is coming up. I had 10th row seats, which at the time was the closest I was for a Kiss show, which was phenomenal. And my dad snuck in a camcorder and we filmed most of the show.
Ooh.
And that footage will be seen very soon. That's all I will say.
Oh, okay. I got you. I can't wait. Oh boy.
Now, did you ever? Now, obviously, because you had missed Rock the Nation, and then there was 2009 that didn't come around. Did you purchase your show?
110%.
Hell yeah!
That was it's right over there. That was the coolest thing too, because when we walked in, I was like, I want to get a T-shirt. I want to go to the merch stand, and it said for $25, get a flash drive of your show. I said, wait, whoa. So I can walk away with a Kiss live album that was my show. Mm-hmm. There was nothing in the world that was better at that time.
That was the ultimate. That's the ultimate.
I walked away with that. I was like, I cannot believe I have my show, because here's the sad part. I still have never to this day seen or heard anything from my first Kiss show, August 17th, 03. I'm saying that so somebody will know. August 17th, 03. There's no footage. There's no photos. It doesn't exist. Please prove me wrong.
Really?
It sucks. So to have that audio of, now here's the sad part though, is that it only came with the first half of the audio. You had to download the other half of the show.
The other half. Yeah, I remember
online.
That.
And we didn't have computers. We didn't have online or internet at that time. So I never got that second half until 2015 when I bought the CD version at the Kiss Expo. They actually had made
really?
CD versions of it with the German logo instead and sold them. And I bought that at the Kiss Expo. And that was the only way I ever got to hear the back half of that show. So that was like a 5-year ordeal.
You know what's crazy? Have you ever been to Vegas?
Once. That was last year.
Did you go to the Kiss Monster Mini Golf?
That was the only reason why we went. Okay. Absolutely.
So did you see at the gift shop, they had all the USBs from that tour?
You know what? I think I must have not gone through them, but I do. They must have moved them because I only saw a couple of them, but I saw where they had a couple. And I thought that was pretty surprising that they had those.
It was. Yeah, they had like this whole backlog, because when I went, I just said, pick me a random show. And I think I got Charlotte, North Carolina, just for the fun of it. But I did get one for my show that I saw in Camden. And then because I saw 2004 and 2009, I have the CD versions of those shows as well, which is actually, as a matter of fact, first show.
That's cool. I would love to have the Indiana version on that CD.
I bet you it's someone had to tape it.
Oh, yeah.
There's got to be something somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we saw 2010. We saw the hottest show on earth. 2 years later, Monster is here.
Yes. And I noticed yours is the one without the O, and mine has the O.
Dude, I've been looking for one.
It's funny because I don't have one with
Dude!
I don't have one without. So Jeb bought this right there, November 17th, 2012.
Like right when it was brand new.
You can't see it, but it says 11/17. That's the date.
Shit.
So this was right on the cusp of
That's
when they did
right
that.
when it came out. I think I got this years later. Like I did a trade with someone and I ended up getting this. But dude, every time I go to I'm at a record store and I look in the case, and if there's Monster there, I always check for the O. It's a stupid, minute thing to look for, but I still look.
But that's like our era, version of like the misprint Alive 2, where you have all the extra songs. Like it's that variant that you're always looking for.
Dude, I'm always hoping that some, and no disrespect to any record stores that are not as knowledgeable, I'm always waiting for that one to just fuck up so badly and just put it like in the bargain bin. And I'm just like, score.
Or like a $5, $10 sticker. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that because that's how I got a free teardrop pressing of Rock and Roll Over. They had this record store had a buy one get one free used record deal. I was even able one time to sneak in a brand new Ace Frehley solo album, and they said, "Yeah, go ahead. That'll be your free record," which was so funny because they should have made me buy the new one and get the used one for free, but they didn't care.
Sure.
So anyway, I was like, okay, interesting. So they had a buy one get one free used deal. I bring up Paul Stanley's solo album. I was like I don't know what pressing it was, but it was an earliest pressing of Paul's solo album from '78. And I didn't already have a bunch of those, but I brought it up anyway. And he was like, "Yeah, you get one for free if you want." And I was like, "Oh snap! Okay, there's a line behind me. I don't want to take up too much time, so I just go and grab the first Kiss album I see, which was Rock and Roll Over." So Jeb and I, we get home and we're like, "Man, how cool was it that I got 2 Kiss albums for really cheap? Hey, wouldn't it be funny if that was a teardrop pressing? Ha ha ha! Wait a minute, let's go look." And so we sprinted into the room. We got the record out, and sure enough, it was a teardrop. It was one of those things that it wasn't like we were looking for it. We were going, actively out of our way. It just so happened that we got a free teardrop. How magical is that?
So it's funny. I have 2 teardrops. One was given to me by a buddy, and then the other one, kind of a similar story. One of the record stores I used to work at, my ex-boss was like, "Yeah, there's a Kiss record in the fresh crop of bargain stuff," and bargain stuff was so cheap already because it was either beat up or just not valuable, whatever. He fucked up.
Yeah, for real. I know, right? You didn't even look. You didn't bother to check. Hey, yeah, exactly. We'll take the win on that one.
For real. Oh, that's a great story there. But yeah, dude. So as we were, we totally went off.
We totally went off. Yeah.
we were talking about the O. We were talking about the teardrops. Yes. I'm still looking for a Monster Energy drink Monster cup. But so. Take me back to when this came out. What do you remember?
Oh boy. So our dad passed away the day before the album came out. So it was it was weird. And nobody knows that. This is the first time I've ever said that on anybody's channel, everybody's show. But it's true. Dad passed away the day before the album came out. We were really looking forward to getting the new Kiss album. One of our family friends at his funeral said, "Hey, by the way, here you go." And they bought me, it was I gotta be careful when I say the story. It was the fanzine or the magazine version.
I remember that, yeah.
The zine pack.
I have that somewhere.
I was like, I still have my first one too. And I was like, whoa, this is not a standard CD. This is not a regular jewel disc, So flipping through, there's 60 pages and you get the band, quotes from the band, you get statistics from the tour, lots of really cool photographs. They were talking about the Monster Mini Golf when it first opened and Destroyer Resurrected, which had just come out.
That was new.
And,
yes.
Yeah. So reading that was a nice escape from reality. Getting to listen to a fresh batch of Kiss songs was exactly what I needed at that time. So obviously I had already heard Hallelujah, Hallelujah. That one had come out in the summer. They played that one when we saw them in September, the month prior, with Motley Crue. They played that one. Yeah, they're touting the new single, the new album. So I mean, there's always going to be hype around a new Kiss album. But when you're like us and you weren't fed like they were back in the 70s with 2 albums coming out every year,
we savor it.
Yeah, it was like we already got one. one was fine. That's, to do a follow-up and say, hey, we're going back and we're doing it again was incredible. And I love how they went with like the opposite like color scheme. They went with the opposite like production style. Everything felt
interesting.
Again,
now
it
you bring
wasn't
that
the
up. I
same.
never quite noticed before.
Yeah, everything is different about like the production, the sound, the songs. Like everything is genuinely different. And I wish that people would go back and give this a fresh listen, because when we talk about Kiss, obviously when they started, they were talking about, I was on somebody else's show recently. We mentioned, put your hand in my pocket, grab onto my rocket. That's the summary of most of Kiss's lyrics. And so it felt like, they had matured a little bit. You're getting songs like Life Lessons, Heather Hallelujah. Okay, there was Take Me Down Below and Eat Your Heart Out. Those are the two that where they go. Yeah.
I raised my flag and she dropped her dress.
Let's go. I remember hearing that and I was like, oh, we're doing this right now. And they saved it. They saved it to the very end. It was like right at the very end of the album. So I thought that was pretty funny, but I just really enjoyed listening to like lyrics in Long Way Down. This life makes fools of wise men, kings, and thieves. And you talk about Heather Hallelujah. You either win or you lose. You either do or you don't. And it's like, Heather Hallelujah. So they're talking about like life lessons and things like that. Wall of Sound felt cool. Talking about going back to the Stone Age. There was that song too. But yeah, it just felt like everything just felt better.
I think with Sonic Boom, like they wanted to make a great Kiss album, which they did. And with Monster, they just made a just flat out great rock album. Plain and simple. I think they detached themselves a little bit from what everyone came to expect and know out of Kiss, and they just went full throttle. And as much as Sonic Boom has a special place in my heart, I find myself listening to Monster more. Like for me personally, top 10 Kiss record. Out of the entire
for me.
Yeah,
it's become my favorite. Yeah, I agree. Again, it just felt like
I was gonna say because we had seen the Motley Crue tour. Did you catch the Def Leppard 2014?
Absolutely, yes. And that was we saw them 20th row that tour, and that was the first time that we were seeing them like up close in any sort of capacity. So we were always in the lawn,
on the floor.
And here we are for the first time.
My first Kiss show.
Yeah, exactly. So this
it's great. So I saw that tour 2 nights in a row. Originally it was supposed to be one. They played in Atlantic City, which is right by the Jersey Shore, and we got upgrades too. We were like top tier, and we got sent to like section 100 something, just right off the floor. So that was cool. And then the next day was Camden, which was where I saw my first show. And because it was 10 years since, I said, I want to sit in the lawn. I was like, I let it all come full circle. Like, bring me back to my 6-year-old self.
I can respect that.
Just some weird geeky shit like that. But it was really cool about the Atlantic City show from the night prior. That was the show where Phil Collin came out in Paul's outfit.
Yes.
And he played so Deuce with them. Like, because there was that. And then on the Aerosmith tour, Joe Perry came out in Paul's boots.
Yep. And that never happens in history. Like, that was a rare thing. And it's funny you mentioned that about Phil Collin, that being a special show, because when we saw him in Indianapolis, that was the night of the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, where they and Def Leppard got dumped. Shit. Yes. that was wild too. Yeah, that was because we're all thinking, oh no, like are the wigs gonna fall off? Is the makeup gonna run? Not one drop, man. It was crazy how everything stayed intact. And if you go back and watch it, it's so funny because you get like the perfect A and B of Gene's personality. So Paul gets dumped with water, grabs the microphone, and he's like, "Holy cow, that's so cold." Gene grabs the microphone and goes, "Fuck me," and drops it. And so you got like both sides of their personalities. Paul's like, "Wow, holy cow, that was freezing." Gene's like, "I'm done. I'm so glad it was the last part of the show."
Oh my god!
But what an iconic moment for sure in history to be there for that. That was crazy, and the Phil Collin thing too. What a great tour.
Yeah, that was a solid tour. You know what's weird with those co-headline tours? I don't know how you felt, but like the fact on that Motley Crue tour,
Hmm.
that was the one time I think Kiss was upstaged.
Okay. Okay. Now,
I,
see, it's funny. I've heard that. It was depending on the night. I felt like I've heard people say, Kiss blew Motley, Motley blew Kiss. They both like were equal. I think it was. I mean, that's how good of a tour that was.
You know what threw me off though with Kiss on that tour? That was the first tour in the States, at least, where they detuned a half step down.
Yep.
And for me, growing up, hearing the records and the live shows, what I had seen prior, that was as minute and stupid as it is.
Hmm.
That was a hard pill to swallow.
Interesting for sure. That must be again a perspective thing because hearing War Machine downtuned, I was like, oh, this is heavy. Everything felt
It does
heavy.
sound heavier. It does sound heavier, yes. But
Yeah.
for a while, I was like, I don't know. But I know Motley just kicked ass. And then with Def Leppard, personally, I'm more of a Motley fan than Def Leppard. I know the hits, so like they were good. But Kiss, I thought they were on fire. Plus, they had the spider they would come down on, which depending on the night worked or it didn't. But whatever.
We didn't get the full spot. We got like a mini version of the spider, and they weren't able to. The stage wasn't big enough for them to actually like come down on it. So, but I was able to actually see it because that was the one time where I saw the spider. So, and I loved again the Monster album, the Monster tour. So that was like I have to see the spider.
Yeah.
And luckily I got to. It was awesome.
I think they came down on the spider the 2 nights that I saw on that tour, so I got to see it in full effect. But cool. right after that whole tour, they also did Kiss Rocks Vegas. Now, I did not see them. They had like a special staging for this show, which they ended up doing on like other tours like around. This is one that I kind of didn't see. Like this particular staging for some reason, but great release though nonetheless. Did you ever see on YouTube? Because I don't know what nights they filmed and recorded this on, but there was one show where they all came from like the back of the arena towards the front of the stage. It was it was a one-off introduction that like you have to go back and check it out. It's on YouTube.
Interesting.
It's so good. Now, did you catch? So that was 2014. Obviously, End of the Road was 2019. And again, I feel like that was another lull where like they did that Freedom to Rock tour in 2016. Did you catch that?
Oh yeah, Fort Wayne.
Hell yeah, dude.
And Dayton. We saw 2 shows on that tour. That was the first time we got to see 2 shows on a tour, and that was Daphne's. Those were Daphne's first 2 shows, 10 days apart.
Really? That's awesome. That's it. Yeah. I think because it was secondary markets, they came nowhere near my area in the tri-state area on the East Coast. So that's one tour that I had missed. And then my next show after 2014 was End of the Road in Philly.
Nice.
And that was the first of several shows that I caught on that tour.
How many did you end up seeing? How many did you end up seeing on the End of the Road tour? Do you know the number off the top of your head?
1, 2, 3, 5.
5. So how many shows have you seen total?
Of Kiss in general?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11 times.
So 11 times, and then 5 of them were on this last tour. So about almost half. I had the same experience. So I've seen Kiss 16 times. 9 of them were on this last tour. Over half. So you're about the same thing, about half. As many times. So you and I, we made sure to pack it in.
Yeah, we got our fix.
Oh yeah, we got a fix for a few tours. But yeah, I mean you have to. It's the last tour. Which
shows did you catch on End of the Road?
So the first 3, the first round that we saw, which was we thought was going to be the only shows we were going to see, which was March 12th, 2019 in Louisville. Metallica had played 3 days prior. Jeb and I saw that show as well. They stayed over and were in the crowd side stage watching Kiss. They were on the camera during Rock and Roll Night. We thought that somebody had put up footage from the Metallica show a few nights prior. Somebody's getting fired because they've got like Lars backstage and the camera pans up and no, Lars is there side stage. Paul's throwing picks at him. And James and Kirk have like confetti all over him. And there's a video on YouTube of somebody who filmed them side stage, but we were freaking out. Metallica was there watching Kiss with us. So That show was pretty crazy. We saw the show August 29th in Cincinnati, and then the very next show, August 31st in Indianapolis. And that was the show that we still consider our last Kiss show because that was our 10th show. It was the same venue we saw Kiss the first time. It was going to be the perfect moment.
Yeah.
About 6 months later, we realized, hey, Kiss is coming to Fort Wayne in 2 weeks. What do you guys say? We come out of retirement and go see show number 11. So we went and got 6th row, which that is the closest that we've ever seen. Dude. Was 6th row on Tommy's side, on the right-hand side. From their perspective, it's the left, but we're on the right-hand side. You can reach out and almost touch them. So that was right before COVID. That was February 2020. And of course, March 2020,
okay.
COVID shuts everything down. And for almost like about a year and a half, we saw the next show. We had tickets to see them in both Tinley Park and Dayton, and they got rescheduled. And then once we saw the Tinley Park show, the Dayton show got rescheduled because Paul's guitar tech passed away. That was when
right.
The guitar tech passed away, and they had to reschedule it again. And so we saw it on May 12th. I think it was Eric Singer's birthday, 2023. Okay. That's when I met Rob from the RBTE podcast for the first time.
Oh, shit.
And that was a great show. Indoor show. So indoor shows are always great.
Sure.
And then after that, it would have been, we saw him Louder Than Life in September. And then, I think it would have been Indianapolis and Rosemont, which were both right at the very end. So.
Wow.
Crazy.
Let me think. My first time, which again I thought was going to be it, was Philly, and that was in March of 2019. Then in 2020, they had announced a tour, but then COVID had shut everything down. They were supposed to come to Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, which was where I had seen them on the Def Leppard tour. But what happened was, instead of just rescheduling, they moved it to the indoor arena that's at the local Hard Rock casino, which is honestly a cooler place to see a show. They did a full production, but also what's cool too is that they're on the second floor of the hotel. They have the Psycho Circus outfits on display. So like every time that I go, I've been to the Hard Rock, I don't know how many times. I'm like I'll have my girlfriend with me. I'm like, can we go check it out again?
Please. I just want to look. I just want to stare at it.
Just look at Gene's copies. Anyways, so they moved it to the Hard Rock, and they had a special pre-sale for people that had bought tickets for the Atlantic City show that ended up just not happening at Boardwalk Hall. So get this, 3rd row for $200.
Dang, that's what I'm talking about.
Ridiculous.
What?
I feel like there should have been another 0 there.
Man, somebody was just giving them away. Good for you.
Yeah, that was insane. Let me tell you, I'm sure you felt it in the 6th row. It was fucking hot.
Yes.
It was hot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was absolutely. I'm trying to think how much we ended up getting ours for, because we got ours for pretty cheap too, because we noticed like, hey, it's in 2 weeks. Why don't we look at tickets? And then we looked at, like, there was 3 right there in front, right there for Daphne, Jeb, and I. I'm like, oh, what's the price? And it must have been very similar to $250. And you're thinking, for 6th row, we have to. If not, we're gonna be kicking ourselves for years to come. So go ahead and do it, man. So that's really cool.
That show in particular, just I think for me is the ultimate Kiss show I ever saw. That's because it was that close. And I think like Tommy pointed at me at one point, which was pretty sick. And then fucking like Gene, because I was standing on Tommy's side of the stage. Then Gene comes over and sings a song on his side, and I'm just like what?
He's
and there's
right there.
Yeah, and there's a funny photo at the end of the show, Rock and Roll All Night. I'm holding my wallet out collecting confetti. And it's just all getting.
I never thought about that, using your wallet, man. I was always just trying to like snowflakes. Like that's funny. Exactly. I never thought about using my wallet.
That just reminded me. This is a pattern I've noticed at Kiss shows. Do you know when my bathroom break is during the show?
The drum solo, guitar solo,
beginning of Black Diamond.
Okay.
When Paul does his little tweedly whatever. I found myself doing that on more than one Kiss show. And I remember that show, I'm like, yep. And then I'm like, hold on, I want to come back before they really kick it off real quick.
For sure.
So there was that. And then on the last leg, I have some friends out in California. One of them is the promotions director for one of the radio stations in like just outside of LA. And she's like, "Hey, do you want to go see Kiss in Palm Springs?" And I'm like, sure. Like, why not?" And I've been meaning to visit them. So like, I hopped on the plane and whatever. But about a couple weeks before my trip, she said, "Hey, just throwing it out there. Do you want to see him at the Hollywood Bowl?" And I'm like,
gosh.
And I'm like, okay, let me cancel my flight. Oh, I have miles. Okay, we'll rebook. Didn't cost anything. And I'm like, all right. Now get this.
Okay.
I flew in. I left my house at like 4 or 5 in the morning to make it to the Philadelphia airport, fly out, 5-hour flight, adjust to a 3-hour time zone difference, see Kiss in Palm Springs. By the time I went to bed, I was up for 24 hours.
Wow.
Like, that was a whirlwind. Now get this. Sandwiched in between Palm Springs and Hollywood Bowl, I saw Guns N' Roses at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, okay. Dang. Two shows
was
at the Hollywood Bowl?
What's that?
You saw 2 shows at the Hollywood Bowl? That's freaking amazing.
2 shows at the bowl. And just down to the history behind it. Like, the freaking Doors were there. Everyone had played there. Like, it's just one of those classy, cool venues. But yeah, the Kiss show was awesome. They ended with a big firework display for God Gave Rock and Roll to You when they played it over the PA. So that was great. But it was absolutely awesome. Funny story when I was in California. You'll appreciate this. So of course, because I'm a vinyl collector, I went to Amoeba.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And look, not gonna lie, no disrespect to Amoeba. If you're a vinyl guy, you need to go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's hype. It's a little bit of hype. I wasn't too shocked, but you know what they had there?
What?
Do you remember the Japanese Originals box set?
Yeah. They had that
the
there?
black box, and it has the debut up to Dynasty.
Whoa.
It was there.
Wow. Now I've never seen one of those in person before. That's crazy.
I never had either, and it was like $700. Which, listen, if I bought that set, I would have said, you know what, I can't go to any other record stores. Like, that would have wiped me out. But and I was thinking, I'm like, do you guys have like a payment program that I can kind of apply for? Can I give you a little bit? Guess who ended up buying it?
Who? Oh,
Rich
John
Kosak.
Oh no, Rich Kosak
of Mr. Speed.
Oh man, hey, I mean that's.
I got an Amoeba. I'm like,
I get it. That's okay. Yeah, man. How do you know that I went to him? How do you know that I went to him?
I have him on Facebook, and he posts like, "Yeah, I was at Amoeba, and I got this box set." And I'm like, this fucking dude.
That's amazing, man.
So
like I said,
like,
I had to go to somebody.
Him.
It went to Rich. Yeah, good for Rich, man. Good for Rich.
But yeah, so I saw those 2 Cali shows, and that was phenomenal. And then the last time was December 2nd.
Dude, yeah, you were. I know. I remember seeing you in the video that they released afterwards. The pro shot video. I was like, no way, I know him. He's there. That's fucking amazing. That was, dude. I was so happy for you.
Dude, that was perfect because literally, I left. I was leaving the venue, and I saw these big white lights and a big boom microphone stand. I said, I don't know what's going on, but let me sign this NDA and let's just do this.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'm glad you did, man. That was so cool.
But what's great is, now granted, look, this is one of my corniest things I've ever done. I got a t-shirt made that said, "Do you watch the record spinner?" And it had my face holding a copy of Kiss Alive with the Saw Blade Rock and Roll Over. On the back, it said, "Now you do," and there was a QR code that you would scan. It would take you to the chat.
That's how you do the YouTube in 2023, 2024.
Gene Simmons School of Marketing, ladies and gentlemen.
100%. That is how you do it right there, man.
Yeah,
oh, that's so cool.
That was funny. But it's great because when you see me in the clip, you see the shirt there. They didn't blur it out. You can see it in plain view. I'm like, that's awesome.
Free promotion. Free promotion, man. That is so cool.
So obviously, like, so that, last Kiss show, whatever. What's your take before we tackle on some of the last couple of topics?
Yeah.
What's your take on Vegas?
You mean what's coming with the avatars?
The Kiss Army takeover.
Oh,
thing.
Kiss Army Storms Vegas. Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell you what. I mean, anytime you're gonna have Gene and Paul getting back together playing, I think is really special.
Yeah.
They haven't, and maybe it's strategic, maybe it's because they don't want to or they don't need to, but we have not seen Gene and Paul together at all since the road tour. Not that they need to. I mean, they've been, together for over 50 years.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to see, because again, those are our guys. You know what I mean? So to see, and even if they do end up just playing Deuce and Black Diamond and Love Gun, which hopefully we get some cool deep stuff. Sure. I want to see them together again. I want to see them interacting with fans. They're going with this Kiss Cruise on Land / celebration of 50 years of Kiss Army / 30-year celebration of the Kiss conventions. It's like, I hope that they can live up to that, because you saw the recent headline, I'm sure, where Gene and Paul are going to be getting in more involved. They're going to be tightening things up a little bit.
Yeah.
That, I think, needs to happen, because when the event was announced, obviously it was talked about in every single Kiss fan circle. It was talked about on our podcast. We were talking about it before it was even officially announced, because there were already rumblings,
there was the leak,
screenshots, and it was like, oh, what's happening? But I think that when you look at the Kiss cruises, you look at some of those Kiss events, they really are over the top spectacular. And I think that there is some fine tuning needed. So I'm excited to see what happens. I don't think I'll get to go, just because price wise, it's out of my, out of my range. So that's the thing where it's like, I hope that there's, maybe some other things that the average fan can get involved in. But nonetheless, again, you're going to have Gene and Paul getting together up on stage, playing our favorite songs. And at the core, that's what it is. It's the music and it's the guys playing it.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you in terms of the price point. Like, I think it's a little out of my blood, but also at the same thing, like, I had my December 2nd experience, and if that's the last like Kiss hurrah, let's just say, that I am a part of, I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Because that night, it felt like I was closing a book in some weird metaphorical way. Like, I'm still as big of a fan as I was then. Like, I'm excited for whenever the box sets come out this year, off the soundboards and the, whatever new products. But like, that was a good closing point to some small degree.
I'm with you. When we were there in Rosemont, it was just a few days before that, that show in New York, and same thing, that was the last Kiss show I ever saw. That was the best Kiss show I ever saw. And if that's the last thing that ever happens for me, I mean, I could not have ended it on better terms with better people. You know what I mean? We were like 20th row center, perfectly watching the entire. I mean, it was everything we could have ever imagined and more. So everything that happens now, I think, is just the cherry on top. But the one thing I will say about this event, and over the years, their attitude about the Kiss Cruise became, we're more of just a soundtrack to everybody's event. It's mostly about the fans getting together. And that is true. There's only one time a year where you get to see all your friends like that. But the reason why they're there, guys, is because of you. So this attitude that Gene has, where Gene's always like, oh, no, this isn't some big thing. I mean, I know it's not a tour and they're not wearing makeup, but Gene seems to be downplaying it a little bit. And they seem to be talking about how they just take a back seat. I'm like, no, they want to see you guys up on stage playing songs. And we don't want to hear the same old songs. If you're going to pay $3,000 plus, you don't want to hear the same things you heard on the End of the Road tour. You want to hear Let Me Know.
No.
You want to hear All the Way. You want to hear songs. Daphne said Freak. How cool would it be for them to play Freak? Monster. It's like the possibilities are endless. So don't give us the same old stuff. Even if for us folks at home that are just watching on YouTube, it's like, if it's about the fans and it's about 50 years of Kiss, prove it. Let's see that.
Throw them a bone. You know what I'm saying? Basically, tap into any song that was not played on the End of the Road tour.
Literally, and there's so much.
The fact that they played Making Love on that final leg, I was like, ooh. I was like, okay.
at least we're getting something. You know what I mean? Because I was really bummed when they played. Well, we heard Crazy Nights for like one of the last times they played it was that Fort Wayne show, and they dropped that. And it never came back. And I thought that was kind of, they played Parasite at that show too, which was great.
I miss Parasite.
We got to see it once, and that was it. I've never seen it any other show, just that one. It was phenomenal. It was fantastic. But it seemed like for a while on that end of the road before COVID, they were changing the set list pretty consistently. Hide Your Heart was in the beginning. I never saw Hide Your Heart, I don't think.
I saw that on the first leg. Yep. I saw
Boom,
that on
there
the
you
first
go.
leg. That was an interesting choice. Interesting choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you were getting all kinds of stuff. You got Hide Your Heart. You got, like I said, what was it? I just said it a minute ago.
Crazy
Whatever it
Nights.
was. Crazy Nights. Exactly.
Parasite.
Yeah. So there was Parasite, some 80 songs. Do You Love Me was coming in and out with Crazy Nights. Let Me Go Rock and Roll was played for a while before it got dropped. That was a bummer.
True. When I saw them in AC, my third row show, they played Tears Are Falling.
Ah, boom! There you go, bingo.
So,
see, what a great song.
Yeah. So they definitely,
80s classic.
Yeah, they did they spiced up the set list accordingly, I guess, depending on the leg that you saw. I think they covered as much ground.
Towards the end. Yeah, towards the end, it wasn't like that.
It was just like clockwork. Let's just play this show and fucking get out of there.
What really annoyed me was when they started breaking up Psycho Circus and 100,000 Years.
I was like,
I hated that because Psycho Circus, my favorite song for one, and then 100,000 Years, the whole song is like a story. It takes you through, and you're cutting that in half and slicing it. It didn't work.
Yeah, I was not too fond of that as well. It was that was one of the weird, questionable Kiss setlist choices that they've made over the years. Definitely one of them. But you're not only just a Kiss fan, you're also a podcast co-host. What gave you the idea of launching Kiss Army Things?
That's a good question. So Kiss Army Things first started as a Facebook page back in 2013, 2014, when I was just graduated high school. I was going into college. I was making all these Kiss memes and showing them to Jeb, showing them to my best friend. And they were like, well, why don't you put them on Facebook and let everybody else see this? And I was like, yeah, okay, maybe I will. So I created Kiss Army Things as a way to just basically shitpost my Kiss memes that I was making at 2 a.m. while I was bored, And over time, well, actually it was 2015 when we said, hey, let's do a YouTube channel. Let's create a YouTube, because there's all these YouTube channels, all these different fandoms have their own everything. Yeah. It's like, we need the young Kiss fans to start providing content. And so we did, I think, 2 videos. It was the 10th anniversary last month of our first video, highlighting the 2015 Indianapolis Kiss Expo. We did another one, which was more like a sketch comedy, making fun of the types of Kiss fans because everybody was still butthurt about the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it seemed like all the different factions of Kiss fans were all like at each other's throats. And so we just started making fun of all the Kiss fans in that video and ourselves. But we just didn't have the momentum at that time. I was in college. Jeb was in high school. We weren't living together. And it just wasn't able to, be a consistent thing. So, yeah, flash forward to COVID when everything is shut down, everything's slowed down. Kiss had just done 2020 Goodbye, which, for us was really awesome because once everything shut down, you're kind of wondering, well, what happened with the tour? What's going to happen with live entertainment? And, here's Kiss putting on like one of the biggest shows of their entire career in the middle of a pandemic. And I know that with the merchandise deal falling through with Landmark Presents and all the fans like myself not getting their merchandise, that became a real sore spot. But that aside, that event is kind of what pushed us, because it was like, look, Kiss is getting out there and at least trying to do something. They're giving us fans something to do, while we're all at home. And so Jeb and I thought, we talked about it for so long. Why don't we just finally set up a camera, set up a microphone, and just start talking? Don't even overthink it. Let's just start. The first episode was us talking about the first Off the Soundboard, which hadn't come out yet, the biopic, which still hasn't come out yet. And, so we were just talking about all the upcoming things. And then we started talking about, our memories and our, our history. But then it just became, once the show started back up, it was like, now we're reviewing concerts, and we're reviewing soundboards and the box sets, and we're, meeting all these cool fans. And now here I am with the record spinner. So it was like, how do we take advantage of, being cooped up at home or being here? How do we share our love with Kiss and bring all the Kiss fans together? Again, I feel like, if you're a young fan, which I know you are, but like for everybody out there, being a young fan being a Kiss fan is not a young man's game. If you're a Kiss fan and you're 30 and under, depending on who you're talking to, you're not going to get the warmest reception.
To
So
this day, I don't get the warmest reception.
no, and it's unfortunate. I know that if I'm wearing a shirt with Tommy and Eric on it, depending on who I'm talking to, it's going to elicit a certain reaction, and it's unfortunate because it shouldn't be that way. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the negative? You focus on the positive. And so
Yeah.
what we've done is, just like you said in the beginning, I don't feel a need to be overly critical of my guys, my band,
Yeah.
because all the haters can do that. I
Sure.
think a Kiss podcast should be, you can have your opinions, and you should be free to speak your mind, but at the premise, it should be about celebrating the band, uplifting the music, and trying to share that and continue it on. I feel like now that we're at the age that we are, we almost have a responsibility to keep this flame burning. So
carry it out. I mean, it is up to
carry it
us
on.
because if you think about it, I mean, for whatever fans are still around from the 70s, it's up to us and people below us that are going
Yes.
to, carry this out for other generations, whether that be new releases that come out within the Kiss camp. Obviously, I know you had mentioned it briefly, the Avatars, which will you check it out when it happens?
125,000% yes. If I hate it, okay, it sucks,
Yeah,
but
no,
I'm going.
that's the thing. I can say that I saw it, and if it's not for me, then it's not for me. I hope with how they're hyping this, it lives up. That's all I'm
Yeah,
going to say about it.
to write it off right now is to be closed-minded and to be unnecessarily emotional. And if I'm going to be unnecessarily emotional about Kiss, you better believe it's going to be in the positive direction. There's no
Yeah.
reason to be, overly negative, especially about something that hasn't happened yet. You know what I mean? So I understand if for some people their issue is the technological aspect where they're not humans anymore. There isn't that human connection. That's fair. If that is the reason why you don't go, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're going or you're not going just because it's not, Gene, Paul, Peter, and Ace, or even Gene, Paul, Eric and Tommy, just because it's, what's that saying? People don't know what they like. They only like what they know.
Something like that.
And because we haven't seen this show, nobody can say whether you like it or not. You can say it's a good idea or a bad idea, but you haven't seen it. Nobody can say, because I'm excited at what they're going to introduce. The way they're talking about this, we're going to be able to feel the heat. There's going to be wind. There's going to be sounds. It's going to be fire. It's going to be, it's going to be literally a Kiss show, but in modern times. I feel like Kiss has always tried to stay relevant and stay on top / one step ahead. Even with Psycho Circus, which for some folks looking back, that was like a gimmicky thing. It was bleeding edge. It was cutting edge at the time. They were experimenting. Is it always going to work? No, but you have to try. And Kiss has always been on the front of that. So I commend them. I support them. I'm ready. I'm happy. And if I walk away going, you know what, that was not worth my dollar, then I will be on the podcast saying, hey, this is my honest review.
Yeah.
But I'm just excited.
I think honestly, look, I'm pumped for what to expect out of it, but I also am going into it with like, I don't want to say realistic expectations, but like, I don't know. I know that it's going to be a bit of a different animal than it is seeing the real deal. And I'm going into that accepting that, but not like in a way like that I'm being let down almost from the get-go. Like this is going to be a whole different experience that who's to say, like ABBA Voyage is still going on in fucking London right now. So this is something that it's think of like the Beatles Cirque du Soleil show, the love show that went on in Vegas. This is kind of going to be that. And I think perhaps, this will kind of allow them to set their mark for all of the future generations that will come to check it out. One of the things that I do love about your podcast is that your wife, Daphne, shares the love with you when it comes to Kiss. Was she a fan like when you guys met, or was it a thing where you sort of indoctrinated her and was like, welcome to my world and this and that? Because I feel like for us fans, and look, my girlfriend is not a Kiss diehard fan. She knows how much I love them. Hell, she freaking bought me tickets for Mr. Speed. We saw them last summer, and she got to experience something that gives me joy. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I feel like our Kiss fandom when it comes to significant others is a cross that we bear.
Yeah, well, I gotta tell you, I'm extremely lucky because even though so to answer your first question, she was actually not a Kiss fan whenever we first got together. When we first got together, I obviously huge Kiss fan, she huge Beatles fan. She's into the Beatles
awesome.
like we are Kiss.
I love
So
the
I
Beatles
was
too.
like,
I got my box that's right up here.
nice. And what's funny is that I grew up not being a Beatles fan, which is kind of
Really?
weird because they kind of go hand in hand. No, Beatles for us growing up, it was too light. I want
What?
Godsmack. I want Disturbed. I want
Oh
the Head. I
God.
want Metallica.
See, you know what? You know what's funny?
Slipknot.
I had mentioned Iron Maiden. I love that
Yeah.
they're both heavy and melodic as hell. So like,
Yes. Now
I love the
melodic is
melodic
important.
aspect.
Melodic is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were we just talking about? What was your question? Oh yeah, Daphne. So
yeah.
we were it was almost like a Venn diagram because she likes classic rock, the Beatles. I like Kiss. My band came from her band, and O's. So I respected the Beatles, even though I was never well versed in their discography. I always had a respect for the Beatles because of where
I think
Kiss
everyone
came
does.
from.
Yeah.
And so so it was like this really fun like Venn diagram where we both like classic rock. We're just on different sides of it. In 2013, we got to go see Paul McCartney live.
Oh hell yeah.
That was like me going to see and experience something with her that she liked. Like you said, Mr. Speed. That was like me going with her. We saw those 2 Kiss shows in 2016 on the Freedom to Rock tour. We went to the Kiss Expo in 2015. So we're always, if you're in a relationship, it's a give and take. You have to, do things the other one likes. But Daphne really genuinely fell in love with the band because once she started like looking at the characters, the makeup, how they accentuate the music in the show, how it all pieces. She's a theater kid. As a matter of fact, she's right now in a local theater production. She's rehearsing right now. So when it comes to things like Kiss and even professional wrestling, which I thought that she would never. I never talked about professional wrestling with her because I always thought that it was something that she would never get. She loves it. She understands the heel versus face, the good guy, bad guy. Cutting a promo, getting in the guy's face, and making a show out of it. She gets it. She understands it. So when you have Kiss, some people look at Kiss and they're like, man, they take themselves too seriously. It's like, no, Kiss doesn't. They're there to have a good time and make sure that you have a good time as well.
And give you your money's worth. Yeah.
Yes, and the blood spitting and the fire breathing, like, it just takes away from the music. No, it gives you something to watch while you're listening to music at the show. Fire breathing and blood has nothing to do with the albums and with the music.
Yeah.
It's just a show thing. So she got really enthralled with not just the history of the band, but also the show and the rock and roll. It was a little bit different rock and roll that she was used to listening to, but that's what got her kind of excited. So I've been very fortunate to relive my Kiss fandom through her when she re-experiences everything for the first time. When she learns something or hears something for the first time that I've been listening to for years or I've known for years, it gives me a newfound appreciation for it. And so I'm really glad that she likes the band like I do, because I hear some other Kiss fans, who are twice our age, talk about their wife and their thoughts about Kiss. And I'm like, how do you guys even stay married? Like, how does that work? There's no way that it would work if Daphne and I were not on the same page about, Kiss. Like, if she wasn't all about this and the podcast and what's happening very soon, and like, boy, it would be a mess. But no, I'm very grateful, very thankful. She gets it. She loves it. We've done a very good job at trading off each other's hobbies. So it's great having her on the show too. It's great having her as a co-host.
That's absolutely wonderful. Like, that's a cool thing. Like you mentioned, like, it's like a give and take kind of thing, like where you trade off. And the wonderful thing is, for any bit of Kiss minutia, whether it's seeing Mr. Speed or watching a documentary or this or that, like, she's in tune with it. And that's the thing that I appreciate more than anything. Because you're right. It's kind of like you rediscover that fandom that you've already established within yourself years prior, but you get to revisit it once again. It's an absolutely wonderful thing, and that is awesome. Last little bit that we'll cover, and this is a little piece of notable news that you had recently announced on your podcast. You are taking over Kiss Museum.
Boom.
So obviously you would explain how it all kind of came together, but like, can you say that your full-time job now pertains to Kiss? Or is this like a side gig? Like, how does it work?
I'm a full-time Kiss fan. I'm a full-time Kiss fan now. This is going to be my full-time gig. It's been Peter's full-time gig for over 30 years. He was starting out part-time, just selling Kiss tapes, and then he would buy and resell small collections. And, he at a certain point was thinking, well, if I can do it part-time and make this much, I should do it full-time and make that much more. And so it became his full-time job. He's built the business from, again, just selling tapes out of his house to a full-blown website that ships pretty much worldwide. So he's, built Kiss Museum into what I would call the premier destination for Kiss collectors to find the best items.
Sure.
And yeah, so and I mentioned this on the show too. I got to mention it here because it's true. I was buying from the Kiss Museum, from the catalogs back in the almost 20 years ago when they were just being mailed out in the mail.
Sure.
We would get big boxes of Kiss stuff for Christmas from Kiss Museum, from Peter Arquette. Dad would spend his Christmas bonus from work on our Christmas gifts, and he would spend it from the on the Kiss catalog. So I mentioned earlier in the episode how I got Kissology Volume 1 from the Kiss Museum. This Sonic Boom gold record came from the kissmuseum.com. This came from, or that came from the catalog. This came from the website. I think this came from Kiss Museum. So, even if I turn this around here, you can see the Blood comic. That came from Kiss Museum. So Kiss Museum has been a big part of my life since I became a Kiss. It's the reason why I am a Kiss collector. And to be the guy that gets to take over full-time operations for Peter and hopefully usher in the next generation of Kiss fans and Kiss collectors is an honor that I don't take lightly at all. It's not lost on me what this means and what this is, and I'm truly excited to get this back up and running. And we're hoping for it's going to be a summer 2025 relaunch for sure. We're hoping in July that we're going to have this website up and running so that Kiss fans, Kiss vinyl collectors like yourself can have a place to go and, have a chance at seeing really good, really rare, hopefully, Kiss items for really good prices. And it's going to be, again, a full-time thing. And it's Kiss Museum is back and here to stay.
That's absolutely wonderful. Now, do you have any stops set up already? Because I think I'd seen a post where you post like a regional focus area, like, hey, if you're within this area, we'll buy your collections. Do you have any stops planned so far that you can share, or are you still working through the logistics of getting it relaunched?
Well, I can say that we do have stuff lined up right now. We're focusing right now on the Midwest. So if anybody watching right now, if you're looking to sell your Kiss collection, I know that's a tough thing, but at a certain point, that time does come. It can come for various different reasons and various different ways. But if now's the time, people, if you want to sell your Kiss collection, send an email to peter@kissmuseum.com and just share with us who you are, where you're from, what you collect. Include some photos if you want, and we'll get with you. But now is the time because we do have some stops planned. We're working on a few other ones right now, and we're going to be hitting the road in less than a month and traveling around. So if anybody is looking to sell your Kiss collection, we buy whole collections. We don't just buy your high-end stuff and leave you with scraps. We also don't buy your scraps and leave you with the good stuff. We're buying whole collections. So this is something that Peter's been doing for a while. He's teaching me the ropes. I get to go out on the road with him, and we're going to do it American Picker style and buy Kiss collections. And it's going to be really exciting.
See, now that deserves its own series right there. I would watch that shit.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Okay. Heard it here first.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm thinking, because again, this is a really, really unique opportunity. And with you and I being the young guys in the Kiss Army, and you're at almost 10,000 subscribers, which freaking congratulations, man. It's amazing. I myself just hit 3,500 here a couple of days ago. So, obviously we're doing something right. You know what I mean? So I want to continue bringing, and I know you do too, want to continue bringing the best Kiss content we can. And
yes.
I think it would be great to, as long as the folks who are selling are okay with it, film this interaction or these interactions, get their stories and, share that with the Kiss Army and turn it into a really, really cool series.
That would be tremendous.
Whether or not that happens like that, I don't know, but you can expect definitely some really cool video, some vlogs of Peter and I sharing our adventures on the road. That'll be something that we'll share on the channel as it comes. But this is going to be really exciting for multiple reasons. I'm excited to see what the future holds.
So is it all are you acquiring all fresh stock, or is there anything left over that Peter has had before he signed off that you guys are still selling through? Are you starting from the ground up, or? Kind
of. When he initially retired and shut the site down, all of the inventory he had left, he sold to Steve from the Kiss Army warehouse.
Okay.
And so Steve, because they're friends, they're friendly rivals,
cool.
So Steve bought the remaining inventory, but there was a couple times where, because it's inevitable, Peter retired, and then you end up getting that one call where it's like, man, that collection's too good to pass up. He actually opened the website twice since he's retired to sell off some stuff that he had bought that was just too good to pass up.
Sure.
I was able to take home, because I went and visited his house back in April. I went on a secret Kiss. We didn't do an episode that week. I was on a secret Kiss mission. I traveled to his house. We opened up the website. We slung some Kiss merch, and I got to see some things that I never thought that I would ever get to see, and was able to take home with me a little bit of stock. So we have a little bit of stock, but we are looking to get fresh new stock. And I can tell you right now, with what we have lined up already, stay tuned.
Dude, I am fucking stoked for this when it does happen. And the website is kissmuseum.com.
Kissmuseum.com. I think it's closed right now. We're going to be reopening it hopefully within a month with fresh new collectibles for everybody to browse and check through. It's going to be amazing.
Check it out. Come next month. And for anyone that wants to listen to Kiss Army things, where can they listen to at?
So we are a YouTube only podcast. I'm not even sure if you can call us a traditional podcast, because podcasts are usually, have an audio. And I intended to at some point, have it on Spotify and iTunes. But I thought, you know what? We're doing such a good job with our format, because we took advantage of our format at being able to film in person. I thought, you know what? YouTube, as far as I'm concerned, it's the past, the present, and future of entertainment. We're going to be right here on YouTube forever. And, sharing our love of Kiss with everybody the way that we want to. So Kiss Army Things is on YouTube. You can subscribe there. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram.
Check it out. Kiss Army Things. Xander, thank you so much.
Dude, thank you for having me, man. This has been a blast. Seriously, it's been way too long. It's been a long time in the making, so I'm glad that it finally happened. This has been fantastic, bro. Thanks.
Fucking A, man. Absolutely.
So there you guys go. That is the third episode of Council of the Elder, discussing Y2K Kiss fandom with Xander of Kiss Army Things. If you have suggestions on future episodes and who to have involved in this series, please shoot me a comment down below. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.